But first, the breaking scandal in Canberra. As you know, I've never rated Scott Morrison very highly, but this did shock me. Scott Morrison, as Prime Minister, secretly made himself a minister of several other departments as well, without three of the ministers of those departments actually knowing. He appointed himself in total secrecy, and with the Governor-General's help, to give himself more power than is healthy. And then Morrison used this secret power to kill off a gas project just to try to save some New South Wales Liberal seats from the Teals at the election, which failed anyway. I'm just stunned. Now, I know, and I said it often, that Morrison seemed to stand for little more than power, and I also knew, and I said, that this pandemic was giving our leaders a dangerous taste for that power. I mean, much more power. But even I didn't think Morrison would be this stupid, this unprincipled, and this sneaky as well. Well, the new Prime Minister today demanded a full briefing.
This is extraordinary and unprecedented. Australians knew during the election campaign that I was running a shadow ministry. What they didn't know was that Scott Morrison was running a shadow government that was operating in the shadows. How is it that the Australian people can be misled, whereby we know now that Scott Morrison was not only being Prime Minister, but was Minister for Health, was Minister for Industry and Science at the same time as Resources, was the Minister for Finance.
Now, let me explain exactly what Scott Morrison did before we get to the fallout. One of the decisions was actually, well, you might even think makes sense if you're very generous. During the pandemic, Health Minister Greg Hunt had the most ridiculous powers under the law, under our biosecurity emergency laws, to, for instance, call out the army if he personally wanted to. Imprison people as well, incredible powers. And Morrison and then Attorney General Christian Porter cooked up a scheme to supposedly fix that, to make Morrison a second health minister, alongside the real one, Greg Hunt. I mean, some fix. All it meant was that two blokes now had these amazing powers. Now, this bit is revealed in a new book called Plague by two journalists on the Australian, Simon Benson with Jeff Chambers. And it tells of Morrison telling Hunt, "I trust you, mate, but I'm swearing myself in as health minister too." This would also be useful if one of them caught COVID and became incapacitated. The other could just keep going on. But what I don't understand is why the Prime Minister didn't in fact trust Hunt. He didn't. And why this decision was kept secret from the public. That's the big thing. But things got even more strange. Scott Morrison also secretly made himself the second Minister of Finance, the second Minister for Industry, and back in April, the second Minister of Resources, and this time without any of those real ministers knowing. Former Finance Minister Matthias Cormann says he found out only with this book. Former Resources Minister Keith Pitt found out just sometime last year. Former Industry Minister Angus Taylor said he never knew. Now, this time, the pandemic was no excuse for any of those decisions. I mean, why did Morrison want so much power and for these ministers to have less? Was he getting a touch of the Dan Andrews, or is he just a control freak? In fact, Morrison used his secret power as the other resources minister to kill off a gas project off the New South Wales coast called PEP 11 that the real minister, Keith Pitt, supported and as minister had the legal say over. Now, Morrison now had the legal say himself as the second minister. He wanted to save the seats of New South Wales Liberals, leftists, from Teal independence. And when he announced he was killing this project, never told us. He did it as the secret second resources minister.
This isn't about being for or against the resources industry. This is about making a sensible, practical, balanced decision. You know, it's the decision of the government, and I decided to take the decision as the Prime Minister, which I'm authorised to do.
And it was all for nothing anyway. The Liberal MPs that Morrison was trying to save, Lucy Wicks, Joseph Walensky, Trent Zimmerman and Dave Sharma, they all lost their seats to teal independence anyway. We lost the gas project, Liberals still lost the seats. So this, what Morrison did was unprincipled and a failure. The Nationals leader and the leader before him are furious.
I think it's pretty ordinary. We should have respected that process, should have respected the forum of Cabinet to articulate and argue out ideas and policy areas and come to a consensus.
We don't have a presidential form of government, we have a cabinet system of government. And if you don't like the work a certain cabinet minister's doing, then you can talk to them about it. And obviously you have the right to threaten to sack them, or you can sack them. But I think it's very bad practice when a Prime Minister or any other senior minister starts having ultimate say over another person's portfolio.
And the former Resources Minister, Keith Pitt, who Morrison undermined by declaring himself also a Resources Minister, refused today to say what he really thinks now that the decision over that gas project is being challenged in court.
This is something which is currently under review in the courts. The level of happiness or otherwise really has no impact on the decision-making process. It really doesn't. And you know, my colleagues are entitled to their views, so they can make comments as they see fit.
So Morrison has not just managed to make the Liberals look stupid, but look, he's embarrassed the Governor-General too by dragging him into this secrecy. Governor-General David Hurley today issued a statement saying, well, look, the Governor-General following normal process and acting on the advice of the Governor of the day, appointed former Prime Minister Morrison to administer portfolios other than his own, the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet. And he said the appointments were made consistent with Section 64 of the Constitution. It's not uncommon for ministers to be appointed to administer departments other than their portfolio responsibility. And the Governor-General made absolutely clear that if there was any blame flying around, throw it at Scott Morrison. He said questions around appointments of this nature are a matter for the government of the day and the Department of the Prime Minister. And similarly, the decisions whether to publicise appointments, he's talking about all this secrecy, well, that is a matter for the government. So saying don't blame the Governor-General for not telling you, I was just following orders. Well, not sure about that. But anyway, you'll get people saying, oh, this is no big deal. The Prime Minister's always the big boss anyway. And all this was, strictly speaking, legal and so on. Well, if it was no big deal, then why was it kept secret from even 3 of the 4 ministers who Morrison decided couldn't be trusted to be ministers on their own? And if it's really so common and so easy to explain away, then why is Scott Morrison refusing to comment? He's told Sky he hadn't seen what Anthony Albanese has said today, and since leaving this job, he hasn't engaged in any day-to-day politics. In fact, could I remind the Prime Minister that we actually pay him still to involve himself in day-to-day politics. He is still a paid member of Parliament. And what he did as Prime Minister raises a very serious question that all Australians should confront and he should address. Just how much power do we want a Prime Minister to have? If Scott Morrison's way is best, shouldn't he be glad to tell us, explain it? But if it is shameful, then yes, I do understand his silence.